Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Digital Leadership Briefing, where we share actionable insights to help leaders stay ahead in digital transformation. I'm Adam Weston. I'm CMO of Invest, and I'll be your host today. Today's session focuses on AI-powered natural language search, how it can improve client experience, help you innovate confidently and securely, and deliver value through client insights. I'm joined by our CEO, Theo Paraskevopoulos, our fintech expert, and the product architect for Invest, which is our client engagement platform for asset and wealth managers. Theo will walk us through and demonstrate how this technology works in practice. But before we begin, quick overview of the agenda is: what is the role of AI in client experience? What is natural language search? What are the business benefits and client impact? And then we'll do some use cases and a demo, followed finally by Q&A and any key takeaways. So over to you, Theo.
Thank you very much, Adam. It's good to see everyone. Thank you for joining the call. Before we start the demo, I thought what we would do is we would have a few slides just to get us to give us a bit of a background, a bit of context. How do we use AI in client experience, and what is natural language search, etc. So over at Grow Create, we use artificial intelligence and its most recent incarnation, the generative AI in client experience, in three different areas. The first and the most common use case you probably have seen is on the support agents, which is usually, you see that as a little button on the bottom right of a website where an agent will help you through a particular task. Chatbot optimization, and this is for marketing purposes, where the user journey doesn't start with Google, perhaps, or a search engine, but it starts with a conversation with ChatGPT or Gemini or another product. And then we hear a lot from companies where they want to control that message. They want to control how a chatbot describes their servicing, the comparison competition, and of course, to link them through. But today we're going to focus more on the third aspect of AI, which is natural language search. So this is where we have got a search engine embedded within our website, or in this case, within our client portal or our application for clients, and it allows users or clients to interact with our content and their data in much more intuitive ways than just a keyword search would allow. The benefits of using natural language search are perhaps a combination between the obvious and the surprising. The obvious ones, the one that you would think, is to improve client experience. We can use AI and natural language search to personalize conversations within our client portal. And that is to say that the AI is not only used to parse and understand a question posed to it in natural language, but also to synthesize its response. That's a generative AI aspect, to synthesize a response based on this, on the search results, and therefore facilitating or simulating a conversation that is very much personalized when we are within the world of client portal. So this is all about your data and your needs. This is very much optimal for clients that are displaying what we call an open intent. That is to say, they're not just there to do a job, but they're there to explore, they're there to browse. And I'll get into that in a little bit later on. The second bit is that it helps you as a stakeholder to deploy innovation and AI with confidence. So with due consideration for safety, for compliance purposes, anything that we deploy will be using appropriate guardrails, which is a phrase that we use in AI to make sure that the AI doesn't hallucinate, doesn't kind of give a user inaccurate or even misleading results. And of course, we always display the source of the content. We always tell the user where this information has come from. And that's incredibly important. The last benefit is a benefit for you internally as a stakeholder. These are valuable client insights that you can bring to your team. The first one is that what people are searching for is a really strong signal of sentiment. It really tells you what the customer is thinking about because of the way that the phrase is. So if you capture that information, you can manage the client better. The second one is that and of course, this data source complements the behavioral data that we store on the portal or on the website anyway. That is to say, behavioral data being things like clicks and logins and page views, etc., which are implicit signals of what the user is thinking. And we add to that the explicit signals that we get from the search. So all these benefits are extremely useful, but I am going to focus, first of all, I'm going to try to unpack a little bit what we mean by open intent, because this is really important on figuring out on which type of, or what's the mindset of the client or the user that we're optimizing the search for. You might have heard us many times when we're describing when we are creating a web application or a website, that we try to map together the time spent on the application and the intensity of the intent. That is the intensity of the customer's intent, what it is that they try to do, what is their mindset. And we sometimes use this rule, this shorthand rule that we have got, that this has proven to be accurate time and time again. We call it the 5-50-5-50 rule, which basically says sometimes a customer would just take a 5-second peek onto their app. Literally, it is, they'll get a notification on their phone or their watch, jump straight in, have a look at the big number, assets under management, my total portfolio value, come out again. Other times, they'll spend just about a minute in there, about 50 seconds, and they will do a first browse of what is around. They'll obviously click around to see different screens and things like that. They will have a 5-minute check at other times where they go a little bit deeper. Maybe they try out a few things. Maybe they play around with some calculators, projectors, risk profile. That's within that 5-minute check time frame. And then maybe once a year, in conjunction with their advisor or in conjunction with, as part of their annual review, they will do a deep dive into the application. And this is where they will need things like to export information in Excel, to use the analytical tools, to kind of do really a deep dive into that. And at different times in that intensity, different tools come into play. Now, with a 5-second peak, they're probably driven by FOMO. They're probably just curious. They want to do like a quick check and off they go. The best thing we can do for them is just to clean up the UI. The way that that might look, if you have on the mobile app, is that you give them the one screen where they get to see their assets under management. That's probably all they're interested in this case, and off they go. In the annual review setting, they've got a job to do. This is not always something that they want to do in the app, spending almost an hour into this, different documents, different forms they need to fill in, different, maybe they need to do a KYC check, something like that, but they have a different mindset. They have a job to do over there. What we're interested in is this mid layer over here. That mid layer where they're spending just about between 1 and 5-10 minutes on the app. And that's when they have got an open mind, where they have got an exploration mindset. And it is exactly in this space where natural language search becomes extremely useful. So when we show the demo now, I want you to kind of imagine that the user that I'm simulating is somebody who's coming in with that mindset. So we're going to jump into the demo now and see what the AI natural language search would look like. The main use case we're going to explore is for the user that will use the search to find content, to interact with their data, to understand the data, sometimes to even run certain calculations or simple methodologies on the data. We're going to see how we use it to personalize content, and finally, how you would use it internally to create to get client intelligence to be able to understand and work with your customers better. So what I have over here is I have got a demo version of Invest. This is the latest version of Invest, where all these tools are available. And there is the desktop version that I have got over here. This is the dashboard as soon as the client logs in. And as I showed a peek earlier, this is the mobile version, where really what they see is the immediate their assets under management, and then perhaps some simple statistics that is reflected on the dashboard here. So things like, what is my top holding, what is my cash position, what you should be doing next. I'll focus on I'll use the desktop version for now, but the whole thing is available on the mobile version and the mobile app. And the natural language search exists here. Of course, you can type in anything. So for example, what is the current investment sentiment. Now, what will happen behind the scenes now when I type in a question? You see that the question is in natural language. I don't type in market sentiment. I type in the whole question as I understand it. And the AI will now look through all the documentation that I have given it. So this is driven through, this is driven by content that I have uploaded onto the system. So these are PDFs, or so this particular one, for example, if I look at the sources, is driven by the market overview, which we have uploaded onto the system, and it reads that information, then it synthesizes the response into a natural language as well. And we can influence that. We can tell it how much to write and what tone of voice to use so that it is on brand. But it is important to say this is your content and your content alone. It is parsing your query and writing back in natural language a response. It's giving you the sources so that you know it's not hallucinating. And there is a warning about the that this is AI generated as well. So this is a simple use case of finding content.
Where else might it get the data from, Theo? Sorry to interrupt. Where else might it get the data from? So it's client data, right?
It is client data. Well, this particular use case is driven from a market outlook, which is something that many organizations make available to all their clients and sometimes even on their public websites. So it is company content, but this is done for everybody. Probably more powerful than that is when you start interacting with your data, as you said. So I can ask, for example, what are my 5 biggest holdings? And this is where it is operating within the realm of your portfolio. So it will go and tell you, it will go and look through your holdings, and it will tell you who your biggest holdings by value are at the moment. So it's in the same way of saying, I can go to my portfolio, I can scroll down to my holdings, and then I can start sorting here and interact with the data. So you can do that, or you can ask it here, what are my 5 biggest holdings? Some other things that you can do really interesting, for example, is you can also interrogate your holdings by asset class and then sum it all up. So if you want to know what your exposure, for example, to US equities, it will go and find from the holdings here, what are your top 5, your holdings that are linked to the US, and it will sum them all up. That way, giving you some instant analytics and calculations on that. If you want to look at the holdings, the actual rows from the data that power this are in the sources as well. Another powerful use case that people can do with AI Assess, for example, is they can combine things together. So you can say, if I have given information to the AI, what would happen to your to investments if as interest rates fluctuate, it will find that through the PDF of the economic outlook and then surface it up over here. In effect, combining data both from your outlook but also from your portfolio. One more thing that is very useful to know. Sometimes you can you can ask for simple opinion. Now it's not going to go into the world of investment advice here. It's not allowed to, but it can interpolate what is, for example, a safe investment. In this case, being cash. If you were to ask it for riskiest investments, it will try to do the same thing, but it will take a more cautious view because it is harder to estimate that. So it will tell you, for example, based on how they have performed, what the riskiest investment will be. What it will not do is, if I ask you something like, and now you can see why I had pre-canned questions. If I ask you something like, should I invest in crypto? This is not something that I have covered in the content. There is no content about that, and not to mention that it is explicit and very risky investment advice. They will just tell you, I'm not going to answer that question. This is, in effect, the guardrails in action. Another use case that we touched on earlier is to be able to create personalized content. So, for example, when you first get to the dashboard here, or on the mobile version here, these questions here are actually generated by the AI search. So what in effect we do here is we power this dashboard by asking the AI, what should the customer know about the client know about their investments, probably about their assets under management, about their significant holding and cash position. In effect, we're simulating the searches in order to create a personalized dashboard. That is to say, this text here is both personalized for each one of your customers and therefore maximum relevance to them, but also nobody from your team has to be deployed to come and to go and write it one by one. This is generated automatically, which is obviously what AI does best. Simple calculations can be done sometimes depending on the use case. For example, it is aware what is your total assets right now. So if you were to ask a simple compound interest calculation, if it grew over 4% annually by 10 years, it should be able to tell you that. That, of course, stays within the realm of simple advice. As you know, in our tool, you can go over to the scenario planning tool and then simulate the same scenario, but of course, put in the variable timeframes and one-off investments and monthly investments and get a much more accurate picture of what's happening in over here. So it is not quite a replacement for the tools. And if you remember, this is where you have got strong intent. When you have got a job to do and you need to use the tool, you will use the toolkit that is available. But when you are in browser mode, it is a very, very useful thing to use over here. The final thing I wanted to show you in terms of use case is what happens behind the scene. In the newest version of Invest, there is the client area and then the advisor area where you get a view over what customers are doing. So I'm looking at a user here that was running the demo, and you can see that all the searches here are stored within the activity. And not only I get the question here, but I also get the response. So not only for compliance purposes, I know what each customer has seen, so what the AI has told them at that point in time, so I have got that trail, but also I have got really strong signaling as to what is the client sentiment from that question. Because if a client was asking something and it was phrased really strongly, me as an advisor now would be able to service them or to proactively cater to the needs better. In another briefing, we would also be talking about how do we aggregate this data, how do we drive sentiment across different clients and all these things. But that is a story for another briefing when we talk about portal analytics and also how we integrate all this data into the analytics. For now, if there is a takeaway to take from the system, is that it is instant personalization. These questions and their answers are all personalized to you. It is superior customer experience for that reason, and also because it is all very conversational. The feel of the interaction with your client portal is all of a sudden less about reams and reams of data and more about telling a story in some cases. It is safe innovation in the sense there's all the guardrails and the compliance safeguards that you need. And finally, that it gives you powerful tools in order to drive some customer intelligence and to understand what customers are thinking.
That's great, Theo. Thank you very much. I found that really helpful. I mean, just to sort of give an overview from what my takeaways are for this is what you're saying is that natural language search delivers a superior client and advisor experience. So it's not just about the client, it's a superior experience for the advisor as well, because of their access to the insights that they get around what their clients are searching for and what they're interested in, so they can react accordingly. It provides, I suppose that's helping to optimize the client relationship, the advisor-client relationship. So that's the key point. But also, I suppose, you know, this is a technology that over the next few years will become normalized, right? We expect to see it on all of our clients' websites, all of our client portals that we look after for our customers. So the earlier you are with this, the better it positions you as a digital leader within, say, wealth and asset management, for example. Look, you know, we've got some questions. I didn't know whether there are any questions from the attendees. Maybe Paulina, can you confirm?
Not yet.
Okay, so I've got some pre-prepared questions. I suppose the first thing is natural language search something for small and mid-sized wealth managers, or, you know, or are we only focused on the big boys?
No, absolutely, absolutely. It is something that any company can use. And in fact, as you alluded to earlier, the earlier you get into this game, the better. AI is a technology that lives off a foundation layer of data. And obviously, if you have worked with us, if you heard us talk before, we talk a lot about how you should collect the data, you should tidy it up, keep it in a place, obviously secure place where appropriate governance is taken over, but also is accessible to other applications. The AI model will then essentially feed off the data and then allow you to extract value to create better customer experiences using that data. So the earlier that you start, the better. Small companies can absolutely get into this game. This is not a mind-blowingly expensive technology. It's something you can start with right away. And in fact, it's something you can start small and expand up. I mentioned earlier, the first use case that we had, which was on content retrieval. You can use that technology at the simplest level on your public website, train it on public data, put the guardrails in place, and then use that for searching before the login, for prospecting and creating and improving that part of the user experience. And then when you're happy that this is working to your liking, you can deploy it in a client portal or client app setting where we can actually start interacting with client data. And then obviously the level of personalization is a lot stronger, is a lot more in depth. But this is definitely something that killer app, if you like, of AI. This is something that companies can start deploying now. It's not a pilot, it's not a beta, it's not something in development. It's something that is in production right now.
Yeah, that's great. How does it comply with industry regulations?
So that's a big area that we need to watch out for. There's two parts to that. The first one is steps that we have taken out of the box to make sure that it is compliant. You saw the little note that we always take care to add. This is AI-generated content, so it's always important to say that. Things like GDPR and FCA regulations, things like MiFID regulations, these are things that we take care of as we provide client portals anyway. And this is the way that we treat the data, the way that we secure the data, the way that we enforce data governance. And when you have these regulations, just putting a layer of AI on top of it is actually relatively straightforward to protect from a compliance perspective. So that's one. The second one is what our clients can do, what you can do as a company, which is when we deploy this tool, is we will ask you on what safeguards you want us to install. How do you want us to customize it? That would be things like what kind of questions do you want to encourage and discourage? So you might give us clues like, if anybody asks a question of, should I invest in, just cut it out. There is not going to be an answer for that. You should refer them to your advisor. That is a very typical use case. Anytime there is anything to do with evaluation, with performance, to follow it up with a typical note of performance can go up and down, and you might not get your capital back, etc., etc. So all these things, how we put the guardrails, how we put the AI in a box, if you like, how we package it, are the way that we ensure regulatory compliance.
So enhancing client experience without compromising compliance. I think that's the message, right? Okay. So what kind of insights? So we talked about the advisor view and being able to see what people are searching. What kind of insights can leadership extract from the search data?
So the one of the most powerful things about AI search is that it gives you an insight, gives you a view into a customer's mind. If you think about it, when you type a question in natural language, it's almost like an unfiltered view of what you're thinking, what you need right now. And this is what sets it apart from keyword searching, where it's gone through a layer of translation. If I want to find something with keywords, I need to convert my question, what I'm thinking, into the keywords. And that weakens the signal. And natural language search is directly from your mind into what you're thinking. And then being able to take all these questions, feed them into a model that will extrapolate the sentiment. It will give you a sense as leadership now, as a CEO or as an owner of a company. It will give you an idea of what is the overall attitude of my clients, much more powerfully, more explicitly than a simple NPS score. So the voice of customer becomes really important. What products are they looking for? What are the main worries right now? Should my advisors, my relationship managers, should they get on the call and call certain people because they're displaying signs of worry or stress? What other techniques or ways do I have to upsell, cross-sell, recommend different products? What other opportunities are there for me to open up new markets or ideas? To be honest with you, once you have this information and you aggregate it and everything, the possibilities of what it can mean for you strategically are endless.
Okay, that's great. So look, just before we wrap up, I've got one more question. How does this fit into a wider AI strategy? It sounds like a big one, but just to sort of summarize, I suppose.
It does go very much into the very beginning of what we talked about, how we use AI for customer experience. It's part of the AI ecosystem, so we influence the chatbots to recommend us, to talk about us in good terms. It is about having that support agent, and we will be talking much more about agentic AIs and support agents. So basically AI that helps you achieve tasks on a later briefing. And in this case, it is about the AI search. So it is about putting together that data foundation that will allow different AI applications to come in and generate value for you. And as I mentioned earlier, AI does not replace customer service. It does not replace the personal service that a relationship manager or portfolio manager will have with a client. It does not replace any of the web tools that we have developed in our portals and our websites. They all have their use, but it does have a way of increasing their value. And this is what we want to see from the world of AI and this very promising technology.
Well, thanks very much, Theo. I found that really useful and helpful. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. We hope the session has given you some clear, actionable insight into how natural language search can help enhance your client experience. We'll be sending out a follow-up email shortly, later this afternoon, with a recording of today's session and a summary of the key points. And we'll keep you in touch regarding our next digital briefing. If you've got any further questions or would like to explore how this could work for you, then please get in touch, either via email or through the website. It'd be great to hear from you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.